blockchains that raised like 8-9 figure dollars like globally in a matter of seconds, and it was crazy. It blew my mind.
This is Katherine Wu. She fell in love with the crypto industry right at the point when she finished off law school in summer 2017.
And I just knew it was the future.
Gained additional knowledge while working for Messari, and has recently left Coinbase Ventures to join crypto investment firm Archetype.
And this is just the beginning.
Katherine, you were studying to become a lawyer. Now, what made you step into the VC area, and how does your legal background overall tie together with your current career choice?
You know, when you're younger, in your 20s, sitting where you are, you know, it's a really good time to take a risk because you're young and there's so much time to course correct. If you look in the history, you know, whatever, you'll probably find like, you know, so-and-so didn't become this until they were 45 or whatever. So like, there's so much time. And so that was kind of the mindset I was in when I first got into crypto. I was like, I just want to learn and meet people. I had built this kind of I would say a small brand within the crypto community as just like somebody who, you know, at the time there weren't many like former lawyers who came into crypto. And so, and also I think this generation is very different from the generation above us, which, you know, in my parents' generation, all you want to do is you find a job, you lock it in for 30 years, right? And whereas in our generation, you know, there's the internet, there's social media, there's so many other ways to build a brand or to like establish like your expertise in a certain area if you're willing to talk about it. And so for me, that's really what I benefited from in the early days. And so VC really kind of was an opportunity that came to me after a little bit in crypto. And I just kind of, you know, what is there to lose? I've already switched from law to crypto, and like the VC seat at the time for me, thinking like, oh, I would learn a lot. I think about, you know, startups and businesses being able to see a broad perspective. And so there was nothing to lose, and you know, I've obviously fallen in love with the craft over the years, but at the time it was like, why not?
Okay, now what do you enjoy most about your job, and how exactly did you step into it?
It's a job, and I think it's really, really important, and I learned this lesson early on, to not bundle up your sense of self-worth with your job. So like, that's first and foremost, and I had to learn it the hard way. I think for me, you know, what do I enjoy most about my job? I think being a VC, especially being an early stage VC, is a practice that combines breadth of knowledge and high conviction. So like, in other words, it's perfect for someone like me who's both stubborn and opinionated and has ADHD. but like, all jokes aside though, I mean, it's like, it's just a really fun seat to be in, you know? Like at first I took the VC job to learn more, you know, kind of like see trends from a higher vantage point, but now having like seen multiple companies grow up from like being, you know, 2 people with an idea to like team of hundreds, it's insanely inspiring. And I think that really motivates me, like having just seen so many founders and companies. Like I now have come to understand like the kind of like conviction and even borderline insanity that it really takes on the founder's side to like leave your full-time job, start a company, pursue your passion. And I think that kind of like inspiration and energy is amazing to be around. And here's the other thing, and it's kind of a tangent, but now more than ever, VCs are in this position of selling capital instead of having like so much power on the upper hand. And I think this is a net good for founders. And it also forces those who sit in the capital, you know, gatekeeping seat to re-examine what they bring to the table.
Being part of an early stage VC gives you the chance to spot trends from a really high level. Now, what trends and developments are you currently keeping a close eye on?
Oh, totally. I mean, so if you want to wind back, like, and we're talking about crypto specifically, right? So in the beginning, in the very, very beginning, there were centralized exchanges. That was like kind of the first product market fit of crypto. It was like the Coinbases of the world. And then like DeFi came along with like the AMM model, and that was super game changing. It launched Uniswap and many, many others. And then for me, I think like where crypto really went mainstream, as we've all seen, is the ERC 721, aka NFTs, that really changed the game. And so now I think, having been through, you know, DeFi summer in 2020, NFT summer in 2021, I think we can start to clearly see use cases beyond just trading or pure financial use cases, right? And that's always a big criticism. And so I think the intersection of culture, tech, and finance is super interesting. And just to be specific, I think there's a couple sectors I'm super excited about, and I think has so much growth opportunity in crypto. So first is digital art. So we saw the kind of like early proving grounds with like collectibles and avatars and PFPs, but I think that's just the beginning. I think NFTs like fundamentally shift the power dynamics between artists and traditional galleries and curators. It also has changed the art world in a way I think people our generation view art. So I'll give you a statistic. So in the traditional art world, the kind of average resale duration ranges between 25 and 30 years. So in other words, like if you own a painting, generally speaking, the average like time you'll hold on to it before it gets sold off again is 25 to 30 years, which is insane. With our NFTs, that number has fallen to just 33 days. And so like I think with crypto art, especially in like the taking off of like OpenSea and like NFT marketplaces, like the sales continue to stay strong despite our current like market downturn. So like in the first half of this year, I was looking it up, like NFT marketplaces did over $1 billion worth of sales. And I think like some of the big incumbents, which, you know, traditionally move very slowly, like Sotheby's and Christie's, like they've all launched NFT trading platforms. MoMA is selling 70 mil of their traditional art to make space for digital art. So I think that's huge. And then like kind of like what else can it be extended to? I think music is interesting. I think gaming is interesting. I think ENS is super cool. And so like anything that's kind of like consumer, how can it really shift power dynamics? And I think those are the three sectors I mean, if you can't tell, super excited about. And I can sit here and cite stats all day, but those are what I think are interesting.
Generally speaking, what factors do you keep a close eye on when it comes to determine whether investment is favorable? Also mentioning anonymous teams, which are really common in the crypto space.
I would say if you are an early stage, like seed, maybe you're 1 or 2 people and you're looking for venture funding, I think anonymous teams are a little bit more rare there. I think anonymous teams probably make sense if you want to just like launch something like kind of just out the gates, you want to do a vampire attack or something. If we've seen like Sushi was like anonymous to start with. My personal belief is there's not a lot of good reasons to be truly anonymous unless there's a really good like personal reason. So like for example, the Crypto Coven team, which is like a big NFT project, they're anonymous because they're made up of 5 women, and you know they worry about, you know, just being a woman on the internet. They worry about harassment, but even then, like I know who the team is, right? So like I do think if you want to, and sorry, just to be clear, Crypto Coven, they're friends and they were not looking for venture funding. But like if you are looking for venture funding and basically what you're betting on is the VC betting on you, I like need to, there's like a couple important things I value in particular when it comes to building in Web3. I think the first is that the founder or the founding team deeply understands the space. And in order to know that, I need to know how you know the space, right? Have you worked at a crypto company before? Were you an operator? Did you start companies in the space before? And then it's about your knowledge of the space, right? So I'm looking to you as the expert, but I'm also looking to you as the power user. Like as a founder, do you understand your product pain point deeply? Do you have the connections to hire a team? Are you crypto native enough to understand the ethos that you're building to? I think those are really important kind of like soft factor questions that you really need to like suss out the understanding of.
You said before that Web3 will shape the future of crypto. Can you elaborate on that, and are there any specific projects you're keeping a close eye on?
Some of the sectors I mentioned earlier, like art, I think music and gaming. Like music I think is particularly interesting. So like when you think about music, so music traditionally right now is a $87 billion market, and it's dominated basically by 3 players, right? There's like Sony, and there's, I don't know why I'm blanking, but like it's like the labels everyone's heard of. But the artists on average take home less than 15% of royalties. And I think where you see such a big imbalance, I think it's also an opportunity or a sector that stands to be the most disintermediated by Web3. And so now you're starting to see Web2 record labels like start to experiment, but I think the crypto native projects that are using NFTs and on-chain tooling are probably going to be the ones to could really imagine the artist-fan relationship.
Okay, so people always associate bear markets in a negative context. I think, however, we can all agree that bull markets are in the favor. Still, is there anything positive you would consider when it comes to bear markets in the perspective of a VC fund?
Let's be clear, nobody likes bear markets. Okay, like all of us are hurting. So like it's not like sure, like, you know, there's less noise in the space in general. So like, sure, you know, as a founder, like some of the founders I'm meeting lately are like some of the most high quality ones that have walked through the door in a while. So that's great. But like you worry, right? You worry that when a bear market happens, people turn like pretty bitter, so the narratives in mainstream media are not great. I think we are still like in the point in a narrative where I'm not sure your average like consumer necessarily understands or trusts crypto. And so in a bear market, when everything is a little bit like quiet and a little bit bitter, like it's just not good in general for the space. But from a VC perspective, yeah, like the founders who are starting companies now are like in it, right? Like you're in it for the mission if you're starting it in the depths of a bear market. So it says a lot about your conviction. But at the same time, like it's quiet, but it's not as fun. But a thing I've been thinking about a lot is like, how do you prepare for the next bull cycle? Because it's gonna come. And so whether you're a founder building something, whether you're a creator, like you start something now so that when the next bull market comes, you have your work to show for, right?
Let's talk about specific investments. What is the biggest miss out?
The biggest miss out, I think it's a lot of taking lessons from the last cycle. Like, what did I miss out on? Like, one of the things I think I was so dismissive on and really was like, learned my lesson this time was like, I didn't understand NFTs, because like in 2018, like ERC 2721s were around, but it was like crypto kitties. And I was like, okay, like, I don't really understand. Right, that's it. Like my brain wasn't so like open at the time to like potential use cases. And also like, I was just like, what, mainstream is so many years away. It doesn't make sense to build consumer. And I definitely think that like, that was something that was a miss on my part. I think I was too close-minded. And so like, with this cycle, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna remain optimistic. And like, I think my timeline, like I used to think crypto wasn't gonna go mainstream for another like 10, 15 years. And now I just think it's a matter of like, I don't know, 2 to 5. And so keeping that open-minded in this cycle, helps me stay optimistic.
Okay, let's move on to decentralization, which is a key element of crypto. Yet, sometimes it's needed that founders propose a strong take and a clear vision in terms of future development. Now, do you favor projects that are structured as a DAO so they involve the community in future decisions and so on, or do you rather value projects that are being led with a strong vision, more like current Web2 companies?
When you're just starting off, when you're just starting to build your protocol, it's very hard, if not impossible, to be a DAO from day one. But I think why even build a protocol, why even build on a crypto network is because you have that plan, right? To like really decentralize either your governance or whatever it is. But I think that's like baked into the crypto ethos, that's baked into the crypto model. And so if you're not going to do that and you're just going to be a centralized entity forever, then just stay a Web2 company. Like it really depends on the use cases, right? Like if you're going to be a decentralized exchange, yeah, stay a centralized exchange. If you're going to sell to banks, stay a Web2 company. But if your whole point is like, I want a community to rally around us, I want this to be like empowering our users, then you should stick to the plan and like have a roadmap, have a plan, but have a well thought out plan.
How do you see the foreseeable future of crypto? Do you think it will be heavily shaped by new regulations?
Personally, I remain optimistic that US lawmakers don't want to drive away innovation, right? Because I do think that like Web3 crypto is the next big unlock of innovation. And I think it's important to keep it in the interest of these lawmakers in their own country, in their own jurisdiction. Like nobody wants to be in charge of like, or be responsible for driving innovation away. But what does that mean? I think something needs to change, right? I think it's really hard to kind of apply the same laws that were written in 1940 that regulates hedge funds today to apply to crypto tokens, right? I think there needs to be a better conversation about what makes sense in the context of crypto. I'm very, very bearish on the way regulation has gone so far in the US, which I think is very enforcement heavy. And that doesn't help. I was actually on Twitter yesterday and I saw this funny comparison, and I wish I could remember who said this, but the way regulation in the US goes is currently like, as a parent, you give you're like, you know what, you came home late today, and so I'm gonna ground you. But what you don't tell them is what time they have to be home by. And that's kind of how regulation in the US is, right? It's like, you don't know you're doing something wrong until the SEC comes down with an enforcement case. And then you kind of just have to guess where that line is, which isn't fun for anybody. So long-term bearish on regulation by enforcement, but optimistic that we can figure out something to keep innovation happening.
Now, what do you think is still needed at this point to onboard larger masses at scale to crypto and Web3?
In the short term, I think mobile would be really important. No one's really cracked the code on distribution to smartphone users except for our centralized exchanges. And I think, smartphone, if you look at global adoption, it's higher than like you know, the number of people, percentage of people who own phones are higher than the percentage of people who own like computers. And so I think like smartphone distribution is going to be the next big thing. I think with the dominance of iOS and like the Apple Store, it's going to be hard, but I'm excited to see someone really like take a big crack at this. So I think that's one. I think number two, this is just like something I'm following, or like we're following at Archetype, following on-chain revenues. Like what are things that people are paying real money or like crypto to use? And I think that's a good indicator of like where trends are going. And then I think the last thing is like, you know, what new token standards will unlock like new verticals. And so like, you know, ERC20s unlocked like ICOs, or like tokens. ERC 721s unlocked NFTs. Like what's going to happen in the next 2 to 5 years? I think, you know, let's see what new token standards like enable or get unlocked.
We have come to an end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and drop any comments below if you have any further questions regarding Web3. We are more than keen to answer those in our upcoming interviews.